and happy podcasting day, everybody. We're a little early today. So anyone out there live, it's dinner time. So hope you're having a good dinner as we record this live.
I am, thank you.
See, exactly. We are the Hawkscast.net podcast, and there's a lot of stuff. I honestly don't know how to begin because so much has happened. So many things are going on. But what a win the Seahawks had in LA. They don't come out of it totally unscathed. A couple people had concussions. DK has a knee injury, but it was a really, really impressive win, right?
Yeah, it was great.
Got me stoked.
I think the thing that really stood out was at no point did I feel as if the Seahawks were not in control or that they were kind of like losing. And we'll talk about it. There's only one time that entire game where I thought like, oh no, this could be the moment where the team like falls apart and like gets rattled and they just lose all momentum. They lose all focus and like this could be the game. They didn't do that. And we're going to talk about it in topic number one because it pertains really to Pete Carroll. But what did both of you think when you were watching this game? Even after Geno's interception and they got that fourth down stop, I was like, whoa, this team is ready to play today.
It makes me feel like this team might be ready to play from ahead and protect leads instead of having to, constantly come back and I don't know. It's just different than things have been in a long time.
Ross, they were up 17-0, and then the Chargers came back and got it to 14-17. Were you worried at all watching that game?
I mean, there was a moment, yeah, where the Chargers scored two relatively quick touchdowns, and then like the penalties happened, and then like some phantom penalties happened, and for just a moment, things felt like they were a bit on the knife's edge. But then, yeah, we'll talk about it more in question number one. But I think things got reeled back in, and it was pretty smooth sailing. But yeah, there was definitely a point where, like, I thought, like, uh-oh, this could get out of hand.
Yeah.
When it looked like we were gonna potentially go up 21-0, and I'm thinking, like, are we gonna blow these guys out?
Right. I was doing the math, and I'm going, is 64-0 a possibility? I'm starting Geno in fantasy. How many touchdowns can we get? There was a moment like of euphoria, and then a moment of despair, and in the end, it was just the calm feeling of a Seahawks secure victory. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Before we get into anything, I do want to offer a public apology to Shane Waldron. I have been a vocal critic of him, and I need to realize that the Seahawks, based upon how they've played these last few weeks and the amount of points that they're putting up, I really should be more like mindful of my critique rather than focus on one or two bad plays. Just kind of look at things holistically, meaning looking at everything, not just like the things that I want to happen. So I was going to offer up a topic of, is Shane the truth? And because keeping in line with our, is Geno the truth? Is Pete the truth? I don't think Shane Waldron is the truth. I do think that he's been doing a really good job through this year. He's not perfect, and I don't need people to be perfect, but I do want to offer my public apology saying that, he is doing quite well this year, and I am happy with how the offense is running through Geno, with Kenneth Walker, with our new offensive line, and with the way that they're playing this game.
Such humility.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get in front of it, because if I apologize first before waiting for someone to call me out on it, I look like the bigger person. So booyah to everyone.
But it's not a full, okay, he is really, really... Okay, here's the question, though. To what degree everything you didn't like about what he was doing for example, particularly last year, looking back now, and to ride a little bit of the current public sentiments, it's maybe going a little bit too far now, but looking back now, last year, when you really, really established this Shane sucks hypothesis, was that entirely his fault? Could Russ not run the offense? Because here's the thing, and like again, I don't want to do like, oh, Russ sucks kind of thing again every week, but I'm not racist, but so
did you say I'm not racist or I'm not Russist?
I'm not the same thing. No, but like so we went through a series of offensive coordinators, and eventually all of their offenses just sort of returned to the mean, to the this is what Russ is going to do regardless of what you draw up or what your theoretical program looks like or your concepts or whatever. You might have this, that, and the other thing as your concepts that drive your offensive philosophy. But when Russ runs it, what you're going to run is deep outs to the left, right? Like,
right.
That's what you're going to do. So is there a degree, do you feel now, with your new pro or semi-pro Shane attitude, that you look back and you think, well, maybe he was drawing up plans. It's not like Shane all of a sudden, like, is a different guy this year. Like, this is the same playbook. It just, like, he can run the playbook. Like the offense can be run like a real offense right now.
Sure. I think there's a component of it, and let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm not pro Shane. I'm just saying, like, I was wrong to say that he's terrible. He's not terrible. They're playing really well. And a lot of it has to do with Geno is just executing at a ridiculously high level. When you complete 74% of your throws, which is leading the NFL, and we're going into week 8, you're not a mirage anymore. You are what your record says you are. You are what your stats say you are. There's always a question of can you sustain that? But that has more to do with the other factors, such as like, are other teams going to take away what you do so well?
Can I mean, I don't know. We don't want to get stuck in this. We're not even on the topic yet, official topic yet. But I'm going to give you one more devil's advocate question on that sort of theme. Back in the day, I used to say that Darrell Bevell, no booze, please. Darrell Bevell was much better at his job than anybody gave him credit for, because part of my thing was, like, most people, I think, judge the offensive coordinator by basically the success of the plays called in the game. Whereas my thing was like, we went to the Super Bowl with Darrell Bevell being given like $1.45 to make an offense. Here, you get a third-round quarterback. You get, 2, 3 undrafted wide receivers, a sixth round tight end, a free agent or 7th round running back. Oh, we're going to trade for one running back, okay? And that's what you get. Here's your $1.50. Go make the best offense possible. And he made an effective offense, right? Doug Baldwin and Jermaine Kearse and so on. Like, that was effective, right? If I told you I can give you an offense that's going to be like, I think, number 2 scoring in the NFL, number 1 scoring in the NFC, and it's going to be centered in a way that it kind of flows around Will Dissly, Kobe Parkinson, and Noah Fant. That's sort of like what's going to make the rest of it happen, because everybody has to adjust to the 3 tight ends out there doing funky things. Wouldn't you say, wow, a coordinator that can do that, a coordinator that can make like those 3 tight ends sort of like really awesome and functional and make it so the defense has to account for it. And then, by the way, they're so good at pass receiving in a sense, but then when they're out there, you kind of have to assume the Seahawks are going to run, right? Like, if they run 3 tight ends out there, the defense has to go, oh my God, they're going like run heavy. We have to keep our linebackers in. But then you put everybody out into a route. I mean, pretty good. It's a pretty good course.
It's more than pretty good. And this is why I think I'm having the desire to have a change of heart. the flaws that I have with Shane Waldron is, one, I want him to run the ball more. That's really what it comes down to at this point. Except toss plays. I don't like toss plays. We had a discussion of this offline, and it was not the fact that it just happened to be a D. Eskridge fumble. It's just like, I don't like tosses to your wide receiver. Run a jet sweep, direct handoff. Don't do that with your guy that's like made of glass. I literally thought D. Eskridge was dead after he got hit in the head with another helmet on that fumble. So I was very frustrated, and that led to points where they're the team. That being said, everything they're doing offensively, I love the 3 tight end set, because what it does is it makes it so teams have to commit. Oh, are they going to run? Oh, all of a sudden you've got 5 wide, 1 wide receiver, 3 tight ends, and your running back split empty, and then all of a sudden Geno at the line of scrimmage audibles, and all of a sudden they go to a run formation, and your defense doesn't have the right personnel. So in that sense, I think it's this magical offense, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I think where they're going, what they can be, if this is the offense that we could sustain to some level like throughout the year, they're going to be hard to stop, because the efficiency of what Geno's doing is not that he's doing anything cheap. He's not doing anything that is like, oh, teams are going to catch up to us. Like, no, he's running this offense at such a high level. It's almost like insane to think about, because where we were in weeks 1, 2, and 3 versus where we've been in 4, 5, 6, and 7, it's like a completely different offense. So I definitely have been proven wrong about Shane Waldron. There are still things that I want to see. I want to see more commitment to the run. We're running great, but I'd like to see us like do that more so than we are, just because Kenneth Walker has been so good, and we're facing a couple of teams upcoming, the Giants especially, that are not very good at run blocking. So I hope that's something that we can kind of take advantage of. But we got to go. We're running late. The Seahawks rise to the top of the NFC West after a commanding win against the Chargers. The offense was in total control, with Geno continuing to just direct the team effortlessly. Kenneth Walker III is the reigning NFC Ground Player of the Week after sealing the win with a 74-yard touchdown that shut the door on the Chargers, on a toss play, I believe. The Seahawks face another huge challenge as they face the 6-1 New York Giants. This is the Hawkscast.net podcast. I am Sam. With me, as always, is Zeb and Ross. And you can find us on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast and Seahawks Forum. But we are going to jump into topic number 1. Topic number 1, Ross, I want to know, is there any question that Pete Carroll is an all-time coach at age 71?
If there was any question, I think they're all settled this year, right? Because the rep and the image had gotten a little bit of a grime on it. The luster had worn off a little bit. There's the fire Pete's, and Pete's too old, and Pete can't do this, and Pete can't do that. And this season, more than maybe any other, he's proven like what he is and what he's got. And what I really, really liked and what I'm really interested in is seeing if his influence now reaches again. Like, so when we started running cover 3 back in 2011, 12, like, we don't do a lot of X's and O's on this board on this podcast, and I try to stay away from it. But for those who aren't super aware, like, generally before 2012, cover 3 wasn't thought of as an NFL offense. That was like a high school and some college, defense. It's a college defensive scheme or high school defensive scheme. But
explain why people thought that cover 1, cover 3 is so basic that only college and high school teams run it, not the NFL.
Well, cover 3, most of all, it's not as flexible. Like, you can't disguise as much, and you can't put as many wrinkles into it as some other ones maybe. And it has, I mean, every coverage has holes in it by design, in a sense, because you can't be everywhere all at once. But the shortcomings of cover 3 generally are more obvious and more pronounced and need less planning to take advantage of, right? So And you could see that, right? Like, every time this, and it showed up. Like, as soon as we didn't have, 29 back there, Earl Thomas, it didn't work for us, right? It doesn't work as well. You have to have the exact right guys to run into the NFL, but we had the right guys. But once we had it, and once we ran it, and we ran it successfully, then it's a copycat league, and people copied it, right? Atlanta and Dallas and San Francisco, and by the way, San Francisco quickly abandoned it. They're like, oh, this doesn't work. It only works if you've got the exact right guys in the NFL, because you're giving your free safety a lot of responsibility there, and he's got to be able to fly, but he's also got to fly exactly to the right position every time. Earl Thomas, like I've written before, is one of the most underrated. Even though everybody calls him great, I think he was actually the best and key member on the defense. Even though he's the free safety, doesn't get appreciated, but I think that's what made the defense go.
So
but to my point, to my point though is so like Pete Carroll changes how the NFL thinks about cover 3 back then, right? So now let's talk about how we think about quarterback real quick. I think Pete Carroll, if people are paying attention, could lead a new revolution with this because, and this is why I think it's cool that he is old. Because in the 80s, sorry for those of you who weren't alive or who can't remember, in the 80s, it was assumed your quarterback could take like 5 years to develop. I mean, that's hard to do now because rookie contracts, if you're taking the first round, are only 5 years. Where you get the guy up finally, and now you got to pay him $1 billion. That's not fair. Now there's no patience, and now, I mean, you can hear people all the time when we were talking about Drew Lock, and I was like, that guy's still developable, and everybody's like, no, he is what he is. He's been in that league for a couple of years, and that's not how the thinking used to be. And when you talk to Pete Carroll about Geno, he talks about all these examples like Rich Gannon and Jim Plunkett and a bunch of other people that, like younger folks maybe have never heard of. But this used to be a thing. This used to be a thing where you hung in the league for a long time and then slowly the game slowed down for you. It's a really, really hard game. And so I think like Pete Carroll's age helped him tremendously this past offseason where he went and like looked at Geno Smith seriously with his old man eyes, with his old man wisdom, with his old man on the hill experience, and went, you know what? Geno's one of those guys. He seems to get it. He's been in our system a couple of years. He's been around the block. He's not a wild-eyed rookie. And I didn't see it. I mean, like, he started 3 games last year. It made all the difference that he got the reps this year, I think. And then he got the offense was built around him. Because last year, I was not really impressed with his 3 starts, even the win. But Pete Carroll's experience and age showed the way, showed the truth, and showed that you can still take that road. You can take some older quarterbacks who in their youth didn't get it, but for whom the game has slowed down over a period of 5, 6, 7, in Geno Smith's case, 8 years, and really shown a way to look at quarterbacks. Like, I'm wondering if now people are kind of going to look around and go, are some of these like second round people who've been hanging around, like the professional clipboard holders, they're the guys who soon after become like offensive passing game coordinators and offensive coordinators down the line, head coaches down the line. But maybe some of these guys are going to get chances. Maybe there are other quarterbacks that are able to get the job done. We're just overlooking because of ageism in coaching, ageism in quarterbacking, ageism in playing. You can't be 30 years old and be a running back, but you can be 30 years old and be a quarterback, and maybe it helps you. And maybe Pete's showing. So I'm kind of interested if this is going to be Pete's newest revelation for the NFL. It's a copycat league, but it does take some amount of success to overcome the prejudices that were there, right? Like the Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas actually was another thing. Like for a while, just for a very brief time, because of Earl Thomas getting that super fast top, coverage that cover one ability safety was a thing, right? Do you guys remember?
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 years that was now it's faded away. Like the common knowledge has come back, and now safeties are devalued again. But there was a time, right? So, but it does take a lot of momentum to overcome years of handed down knowledge. That's maybe not really true, but people just kind of accept it because it's written like in the NFL Bible. But Pete's overcome some of it. I'm wondering if, with the reputation he's rebuilding this year, and everybody like talking about how we all owe him an apology, is he now going to overcome our thinking at quarterback? That's my thing this week.
I think that's an interesting proposition to come at, because I know we've talked about the price of the quarterback, how much it eats into your cap, and how it kind of hampers your team to a certain degree, because you're always retooling for your quarterback. You're never rebuilding for like, okay, now we need to change our offensive philosophy. We need to change how we design certain things. We need to change what we're doing. It's like, no, we're just trying to keep it together. Zeb, for the people out there that maybe have not been or never will be Pete fans, how would you convince them that he's an all-time coach? Because I think we're all pretty Pete positive. So
I'm a Pete apostle.
I like to use Pete disciple, but Zeb, what about you? Is there any question that Pete Carroll is an all-time coach, even at age 71?
There are 20 NFL head coaches in the history of the league who have more victories than Pete Carroll. And if you look at that list, it's a veritable who's who of all-time greats and Hall of Famers. A couple of guys mixed in there who just stuck around for a really long time.
Jeff Fisher or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Also one of the losingest coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's lost a lot of games. But, and Pete's probably just looking at the next season or two, assuming he coaches through next season. He's probably going to end up somewhere in the 14th, 15th range. And that speaks for itself. Everything Ross said, I agree with 100%. Pete Carroll has proven to be an all-time great motivator. We talked about this, I don't know if last week or a couple weeks ago, how he's able to just kind of get the best out of people and identify the people who are able and capable of playing above what people expect from them. So even if, you can't say Pete Carroll's the greatest coach of all time, but he might be the greatest motivator of all time. He's up there, and you can take whatever you want away from him, but the numbers don't lie, and he's got the wins to show for it. He's going to end up in the Hall of Fame. He's going to go down in history as one of the greatest coaches in NFL history.
Yeah, I for anyone that doesn't think that Pete is an all-time coach, I don't know if there's anything you could say that would all of a sudden convince them based upon what we all know. I want to talk about this one series that we had in the third quarter. Tony chiming in on the chat, I thought Pete was over the hill coaching-wise, and I was very, very wrong. I feel like there's a lot of people that feel like that right now, especially with this team 4-3. So the Seahawks are driving. They just scored a touchdown. They got the ball back, and they're just churning the clock. I think they ended up burning through 10 minutes of clock. They ran 17 plays. They're 3rd and 5. They get called for a false start on the center, and the broadcaster was like, I don't know what the refs saw. Why did they call a penalty on the center? Maybe they got the number wrong, but no one on that offensive line moved. And there was a lot of discussion. It was heated. It went to 3rd and 10. And Geno was heated. I'm surprised Geno didn't get a flag. And maybe the refs were like, we kind of fucked up, so we're just going to let him chew us out for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, the camera shows Geno walking back to the ball, back to the huddle. And you could tell he's frustrated. You can tell it in his facial expression, in his body language, that he is just frustrated, angry, upset. And then you see Pete, he goes, Geno turns around, and Pete just makes this simple motion. He just kind of has his palm facing his chest and kind of just like swipes his chest down, like just once. And just like, we got this, like cool down, calm down.
Center yourself.
Center yourself.
Very much center yourself. Yeah.
And Geno just like got it together. And then they had this amazing first down. Tyler Lockett was amped up. He was like ready to go fight. Geno's looking at the refs. He's looking at the sideline. They were just so dialed in. And what that says to me, and Emmanuel Ocho, he actually did a whole like YouTube, Twitter clip just about that one interaction. And while they only scored a field goal on that drive, I don't know how many coaches could reach out to their quarterback, and maybe it's because of Geno who he is and the fact that he's not like this 15-year starter for the team, that it's not going to be that dynamic. But Pete, in that one motion, just like calmed everyone down, centered everyone, and they went out and executed. And, you know, people say, oh, they should have got a touchdown. Well, yeah, they should have. But that moment just speaks to me of what Pete Carroll is, and the fact that he is able to connect with people that are 40 to 50 years younger than he is. And that boggles my mind. I mean, I got kids. They're, 10 and 12, and there are certain things that, like, I just don't get it. I'm too old. I don't get this. I don't know how we're going to connect now. Like, this is a guy that is spanning generations upon generations and still connecting with these players. And I just think that in itself is what Pete's about. He's about coaching. He's about teaching. He's about mentoring. And in that one instance, I think it was a perfect example and embodiment of what Pete Carroll is and why he is so good and why he's an all-time coach.
You asked, like, who else would do that or who else could do that? And, like, that's the thing. Like, if you want to split hairs, I'm going to say Bill Belichick is a better coach than Pete. I mean,
I don't think you can argue against that with his Super Bowl wins.
Yeah, and that's cool. Although I can't argue that I'd rather have Pete Carroll's career, because this is off topic, just real quick as an aside, I feel like Bill Belichick has enjoyed exactly 3 or 2 minutes of his career. Like, he's done what nobody else ever done. He doesn't enjoy it. But my point is that, to your point, is when Brady was there, and if Brady, and Brady can get a temper. Brady's famous in getting an increasing reputation for breaking tablets, which everybody thinks is cute and funny, but I think it's just so entitled. Can you imagine if Belichick tried to walk over to Brady and was like, center yourself? What? Brady's not having that. Belichick can't get away with that. Again, he's an all-time coach. But that is not a tool in his bag. I can't really think of, in today's modern NFL, I can't think of another coach that could really do that and to get away with it and to not feel fake and phony. But it was the most natural thing in the world for Pete to do. Yeah. Because Pete brings in the yoga people, and Pete brings in the self-actualization people, and Pete's all about visualization and the positivity and all of these mental techniques that do work. And Geno didn't look at him like, what are you talking about? Geno obviously has been talked about this before. Geno has done this before. Geno has seen that before, or at least heard it before, because he knew exactly what he meant. Because Geno wasn't like, old man, what are you talking about? This isn't some Zen retreat. What?
Yeah.
He was like, yeah. And then he did it. He applied it. Went out, threw an 11-yard completion on 3rd and 10. It was amazing. Yeah, and again, Pete's not the best of all time because there's people like Belichick, but I'd rather have Pete any day of the week.
Tony chiming in. Oh, really quick. Tony chiming in.
I was going to players just players as well. Go ahead.
Tony chiming in says, in regards to Bill Belichick, not this week. His move with Zappy and Mac was crazy bad. So if you didn't watch it on Monday night, the Bears were up 10-0, and then Mac Jones is playing terrible, and then Billy Zapp comes in, throws 2 touchdowns, and they're up 10-14, and then Billy Zapp magic disappeared, and they just got trounced by the Bears. Anyway, we got to move on. We're running late, so we're going to jump to topic number 2. Topic number 2, what does the 2022 draft have to become to be better than the 2012 draft? So just to highlight, players that they got in that 2012 draft, Bruce Irvin, Bobby Wagner, Russell Wilson, Robert Turbin. I think they got Maxwell in that draft, and they got another person, I believe. But it's really those top 3-4 guys. Zeb, what does the 2022 draft have to do to become better than that all-time Seahawks draft?
First of all, I'm not even 100% convinced that the 2012 draft was better than, say, the 2010 draft. But I get it. For the sake of the conversation, we'll roll with it. We need longevity out of 3 of these guys. If 3 of these guys go on to play for 10 years and go to Pro Bowls, then that draft is probably better than 2012. I mean, you just named the players. Bruce Irvin, who has had a nice long career and has been good, was ultimately underwhelming for us for a lot of the time. We're finding out more and more about the truth about Russell Wilson. There's nothing you could say about Bobby Wagner. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. One of the best middle linebacker in the league while he was, for 10 years. So, nothing you can say about that. But we have 5/6 starters from this draft right now who are playing like seasoned veterans for the most part. Maybe not Kobe, but he's coming along. Boye. But Cross and Walker and Lucas and Woolen, I mean, these guys there's teams that are probably kicking themselves for not drafting these guys right now. So it's about playing at this level and improving for an extended period of time, for seasons and seasons. It's about winning playoff games and hopefully championships. And if even 4 of these guys come along the way, Bruce did or better, then I think it becomes very difficult to say that the 2012 draft was better.
So just to add a little bit extra, so in that 2012 draft, it also included Jarrett Sweezy and Jeremy Lane, so 2 starters that played heavily in our Super Bowl runs in 2013 and 14. Ross, what does this 22 draft have to become to be better than the 2012 draft or any of our drafts? Birdfinger says stay healthy. So what do you need to see to compare it to the likes of any of these 3-year runs they had, 2010, 2011, 2012?
I mean, it's looking good, but it's early. They have to accomplish. And part of that is, like Zeb says, like they have to, you need some longevity. Like Bird says, stay healthy. Like, if you want to be compared, I mean, you guys have done it really, really, really well for 7 games. But Bobby Wagner is probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. Are you for those who don't come along all the time? You get one of those. I mean, the 2000 whatever draft class could have just had him, and that makes your draft, right? Wow, you got 5 starters for 7 games or a season or 2. Cool. That draft had a Hall of Famer first ballot that changed the game and rejuvenated what a middle linebacker can be. So yeah, these guys are great and they're solid starters, but we need them to progress, to develop. We need probably Cross, if not both Cross and Lucas, to be Pro Bowl level tackles. We need, looks like he's going to be there, but Walker needs to be a Pro Bowl or All-Pro running back. We need they don't just need to be serviceable or good starters. We need some of these people to be outright stars. Okay, Tariq Woolen got 4 interceptions in 4 games in a row. That's amazing, and probably close to a record or something for rookies. And that's cool. That's super cool. But can you just stay in coverage? Can you get 2 more interceptions the rest of the season? Can you do it every week?
Well,
for years?
do teams even throw his way?
Well, yeah, they kind of do. Because the thing is, when he's not making amazing plays, then he's kind of goodish. He's not like a lockdown corner yet, and he can't be. He's 7 games into it. There's so much to learn. The NFL's you're playing as guys, who have developed for their skills for 10 years as a pro, compared to when you're in college where it's 12 game seasons for 4 years. You probably only play 3. You only played 2, I think. So yeah, I mean, we just need these guys. Like, great, they're doing awesome, but show me you can do it for years. Show me you can. You're not satisfied. Show me that you're not satisfied with they handled Khalil Mack pretty well.
Really,
he didn't dominate. Yeah, but they didn't dominate him. He got a sack. He made some plays. So
did he get a sack? I don't think he got a sack. I think he had his worst defensive production of the year.
I'm going to go check his numbers in a second. I thought he had one. Maybe not. Cool. But I wouldn't say he was dominated either. But now, 5 years from now, when we play, because it's a 5-year cycle, right? When we play the Chargers for 5 years from now, I want to hear, whoever they're up against, it's probably not Mac, obviously, but I want to hear that they manhandled. I want to see Cross he's now the next, Dwayne Brown type. He's dominating the defensive ends. I want Woolen to have 0 interceptions 1 year because, like you're saying, they just don't even throw that way anymore. That's what we're going to need. They're really good. It's a really great start. I don't want to sound negative. I'm super, super, super stoked. And I think most of them will progress that way. But they've got to show it, and we can't get too far ahead of ourselves.
Khalil Mack had 1 solo tackle and 2 total tackles. He had 0 sacks. I think really what it comes down to is you can't view it in 1 year because, like Zeb said, you look at any of those draft classes, 2010, 2011, 2012, when you've got a Hall of Famer in each of those draft classes, and some of them you have 2 Hall of Fame potentials, it's a really, really high threshold to make. I think you have to be very encouraged that not only are they starting, but they're playing at above starting level. That's what you should be excited about. So I think that's what you appreciate, but I don't think we'll know until 2027. We don't know how many of these guys are going to be able to stay healthy, how many of them are going to re-sign with Seattle. That's a big thing, but I think it's promising. Abe Lucas, that guy just seems to maul people. He might be getting a little bit of help more so than Cross, but we're not hearing huge lapses. I'm more worried about our interior offensive line than I am worried about the guys on the outside. So I think that's really promising. I think Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant, they're forcing turnovers. And if you can get rookies to force turnovers on defense, I don't know what more they could do. And if they could just build upon that, be more sound, be more reliable, who knows what the future holds? Because it really does come down to not just being good for the team. They have to get recognized. They have to get those Pro Bowls. They have to get those All-Pros. They have to get recognition on a national level, and they're doing so with the weekly awards that they're getting, but it has to be consistent. And once we start seeing that, once we start saying, oh yeah, you know what, the one person you don't want to face on this offense is Kenneth Walker III, or if you are looking to throw, don't throw to Kobe Bryant's side, don't throw to Tariq Woolen's side, find somewhere else to get the ball to, because those guys will take it away from you. Once we get into that conversation, I think it's going to be great. I will say that I don't think I spoke as highly of the 2012 rookies as much as I have about these 2022 rookies, though. So that in itself, I think is exciting. It's not a guarantee that they're going to continue to evolve and grow and grow and grow, but it's a great start.
Yeah, I think the fact that those drafts were great, but having all these rookies right now at the level playing at the level they're playing at, I don't think any of those drafts did that. So a lot of football left to play, but looking really, really great.
Very, very promising. All right, let's move on to topic number 3. This is the Hawkscast Corner. And I always forget because I'm so involved in our conversation. Who's taking this first? Is it Zeb or is it Ross? You have a preference?
It's Ross this time.
Ross, do you treat the Broncos game as a second Seahawks game to watch each week?
Yeah.
The very sheepish yes. Right,
I mean, it doesn't really gel well with how I see myself or where I want to be at in my life, mentally and emotionally. But yeah. And I could justify it by saying I gotta see. We got the first and second round picks, man. Like, where are those gonna be? But that's a lie. That's not why I'm watching. Partly, and I'm actually, it's funny how complex the human brain can be. I'm of two minds. Like, I'm already sort of over and feeling almost regretful of my part in the sort of over piling on Russ. He's not a bad dude. He's really not. Even if, for example, in Tony's phrase, he's reading his own press clippings. I nitpick with that analysis a little bit, but whatever his faults are, in the end, Russ isn't actually a bad dude. I don't care if it is even a media ploy or something, but I don't think it is. But going to a children's hospital every Tuesday for years, I mean, come on, man. I don't care what you think. That meant a lot to those kids. He's not a bad guy. Just painfully lacking self-awareness in both the professional and private, spheres. And it's unfortunate because now it's having unfortunate, ramifications. And it's funny because where he thought he was going to be or where his dreams were at 6 months ago, how much has he lost? When you're now a national laughing stock in a sense, with Subway's canceling your sandwich and stuff, where you thought you were going to be even when you retire, what your career was going to look like when you retire, it's all changed. So I'm a little bit sad. So, and again, I kind of somewhat regret my part in it. I suspect Tony will say, well, hey, man, you know what? He brought it on himself. That's great. That doesn't mean I have to be that small.
Tony actually chimed in. Tony said, he's a great person. I never said otherwise. So we could discuss the merits of that offline. But
spicy.
Again, he did bring it up. But that's the thing. I can rationalize and say, I just want to know where our draft pick's going to be. Because it went up. 2 weeks ago, their pick is worth the 7th overall, and now it's 6th. And it's not just 6th, because that also means 38th. 6th and 38, because we get... So that's pretty cool. But you know what? We've had other teams' picks in the past, and I didn't watch their game every week. I got to admit, I want to see where Russ is at. And...
Wait, funny enough, isn't the last time we've had another team's number 1 or first-round pick was the Broncos when we traded our second-round pick for their first-round pick next year?
Yes.
I remember I didn't watch the games, but I was disappointed that we ended up with the 10th or 15th pick, one of the two.
Yeah, I mean you track it, but you're and I didn't even track it till maybe the second half of the season, right? But I can't deny I'm watching because I want to see what happens to Russ. And this past week Russ didn't play, so I wanted to see okay, there's I think it was you, Sammy, said to me might have been Tony. There's just no upside.
Oh, yeah.
If their offense plays better without Russ, now what do you do? Okay, great. But what if they just play the same levels with us? Okay, so why did you spend $245 million when you could have just spent $243 million and $2 million, save the other $243 because you're going to get the same production. So yeah, I'm treating it that way. I wish I wasn't. I wish I was just kind of over it. But I don't know. Maybe 2.5 years of pandemic has stressed me out enough that I need a little space to be a little petty.
Nice. I think it's worth it. Bird chiming in said, well, he's a person. I think he's blossomed into a dick, and I'll say he brought it upon himself. I don't give a blank. So fill in your
He's blossomed into a dick.
Yes. There's other ways you could say that too. He's engorged himself into a dick. I think that's great. Zeb,
the Blossoming Dicks would be a good name for a band.
Zeb, do you treat the Broncos game as a second Seahawks game to watch?
Nope.
Just straight up.
I don't care if the Broncos games are on TV or not. And in fact, the ones that have been awful, terrible football games to watch. I'm not actively rooting against them outside of the fact that we get a better draft pick the more they lose. So that's cool. If they lose all their games and we get the highest draft pick we can get, awesome. I'm into it. I'm not actively rooting against Russell Wilson outside of the fact that I want us to have won the trade, which appears to be the case so far.
Yeah, I can't believe we're only 8 weeks into the first season and we've already easily won.
Right. But I'm not like rooting against the guy. I don't want to see him fail as a person. I don't have vitriol towards Russell Wilson. I get it. He's cringe all the time. It has just gotten worse and worse. He's not a superstar. He's not Hollywood Russell Wilson. He's trying to be that, but he shouldn't be that. He shouldn't be getting that kind of attention. But I don't dislike the guy. I don't want him to fail. Honestly, what I want is for this trade to work out in our favor and the Broncos and Russell Wilson to have a breakup of some point and him to be successful in Jacksonville to end his career or something. You know what I mean? Like,
you can't be successful in Jacksonville.
Yeah, but maybe Russell can. Why not Russ?
There's a king in every room.
I don't care if you're running a car wash. You cannot be successful in Jacksonville.
But you know what I will admit, too, is that when I do watch the Broncos games, it does feel like I'm watching the Seahawks. It's literally, it's so reminiscent. If they didn't have different uniforms on, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
I feel like they're worse. I feel like they're worse, though.
Well, the Russell Wilson Seahawks at their worst.
Yes,
this is what it looks like.
That's the thing, right? Like people are like, Hackett's got to go. Hackett's got to go. He probably does, but here's the thing: they're just running Russ's offense. But if Russ has 100% control over it,
it's like watching us play against Colt McCoy in 2 different years, and we can't do anything.
Well, Colt McCoy is Seahawk kryptonite.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird, man. Especially with my mild color blindness, if I don't look carefully, the Broncos jerseys actually can look even more Seahawkish. So I'm just like, whoa, he's back. It's like alternative universe Seahawk games. It's weird, man. We're not offense. I wish we had that defense again. Jesus.
Yeah. I'm more similar to Zeb. I don't watch the Broncos game. I don't get anything out of seeing Russell fail or the Broncos fail other than knowing that their draft pick is ours for the first and second round. I definitely scoreboard watch. If the Broncos game is on, I'm not going to go out of my way to find it on TV or find it online. I'll look at the box score. But I part of the reason why I feel that is because I already get inundated with Russell Wilson news everywhere.
Sorry.
You're getting it all over Twitter. You're getting it on YouTube. You're getting on ESPN. You're getting on NFL.com. You're getting on Yahoo Sports. Anywhere you get your NFL news from, especially from a national perspective, someone is talking about Russell Wilson, and it's going to end up in my feed because the haters want to show it, the believers want to show it, and it's just there. So in that sense, I get all the Russell Wilson news that I need. Then it's not even about him playing. It's about what he did or what he's going to do and his injury status and his very, very manicured press releases that he's sending to the Adam Schefters and Ian Rappaports of the world saying why he's not going to play. And then the team has to come out and say, oh yeah, Russ told you he's not going to play? Yeah, he's not going to play. Those are things that make it so those are the things I don't miss about Russ, you know, especially since we're not even seeing like the good version of him playing right now. So those antics, those things that make him a me first kind of guy now, that whole blossoming into a dick, as Bird said, I don't miss that stuff, because when you're winning, you'll take a lot. When you're winning, you'll say like, yeah, that's just who he is. We'll just deal with it because we're winning. It doesn't matter. But when you're losing, or when you're seeing his team lose, it just irritates you. It bothers you. It's aggravating. It's cringier than you ever thought. And I think that's what I'm getting from the Broncos and Russ right now. The only game that I really, really wanted Russ to lose was just that first game. And when we did, especially in the fashion that he lost and the way that Hackett called that game, it was beautiful. It was just so much fun. Like, I really should go and watch that game again, but then I realized no one scored in the second half. So, I think the people that are enjoying Russ, suffer and not play well, they were probably done with Russ already, especially in how he caused his own exit from the team. And I think people are right to say, like, yeah, he put this on himself. He didn't have to leave Seattle. He had a no trade clause. He could have said, no, Jody, John, Pete, I want to make this work. I want to be a Seahawk for life. I signed this deal with a no trade so that way I could stay here for as long as I want to stay. And what would the Seahawks have done? Nope, we don't want you here. You have to accept a trade. John maybe would have wanted that. Jody maybe would have wanted that. But Pete, I truly believe he would have tried to find a way to make it work, because that's who Pete is.
By all accounts, Pete was the last one on board with trading him.
Yes, that's everything that I've read, everything that I've heard, that Pete was the one that had the hardest time, like, saying we're going to make this trade. And I think that speaks again to why Pete's an all-time.
Remember last year, Roethlisberger's last home game, and you know what, I hate Ben Roethlisberger and I hate the Steelers, but his last home game where he did his victory lap around the stadium, and the whole stadium stayed after the game and cheered for Ben Roethlisberger because it was his last game. And I just was thinking to myself, I sure hope Russell Wilson's watching this, because if you're talking about legacy and you're talking about, wanting to be one of these all-time greats, then acting foolish and wanting to do things outside of the team and be the, doing the things we've seen him do now, that's not going to get you here where Ben Roethlisberger is right now. Nope. And who doesn't want to feel like that at the end of their career?
Yeah.
It's so weird to me that how many players don't understand, like, that kind of thing requires you almost always to stay with one team for actually long, hopefully your whole career, but you can sometimes get away with 2 or 3 years at the end, like going somewhere else. But like, you don't see like all-time greats that are like emulated as, like the epitome of football, people who split their career 50-50, really.
Yeah, I think it's
like,
I think it's just hard.
Sorry?
I think it's just hard. I think the way that the salary cap is structured, I think the way that contracts are structured, I think the way that teams look at roster construction in general, it's just really, really hard to do that. Like the fact that Seattle kept its core from 2010-ish to 2015, almost 2017, of like offensive tackles, quarterbacks, running backs, corners, safeties, middle linebacker, outside linebacker. The fact that they were able to keep a core of that team together for that long is a semi-miracle. Most players just don't have that ability. Most teams don't have that flexibility. It's just really hard. So I agree, and Birdfinger says Zeb knows. I think if players could choose, that's what they would want. I just think the structure is not set up to fulfill that.
I think there needs to be like a new wave of agents coming in that are really realistic and like next gen, like that are saying, yeah, look, I can get you this other contract here, but the fact is, statistically, if you change teams and change cities long term for your life, you're going to make less money because endorsement money is going to be harder to come by. It's a huge gamble to play in a different system. And as Russ is finding out, you go to a different city with a different coach, a different system, different everything. Who knows if you play at the same level? stay at home, ask for less money, know that you're going to make up for it in endorsements and things like that because you become the local legend. When you're done with your career, you've got like this base that will love you forever in one city, and from there it's easier to build.
Yeah.
Whereas if you change cities, you know, like that's one of the things. Like right now, Russell Wilson in Denver, he didn't win them a Super Bowl. Like if Russell Wilson had the year that he's having right now in Seattle right now, yeah, there'd be some like bench Russ or whatever, but there'd also be more and more people saying, give him the benefit of the doubt, or he's going to work through this, or whatever. Like because you're with the crowd that you earned it with.
Yeah.
But he's got no cred. He hasn't done anything for the Denver fans except for make them feel ripped off.
No, because what they did was they said, we're making this trade to win a Super Bowl now. And they are in last place in their own division. They're floundering.
And it's getting worse. Like, if they lose this weekend, they say, like, they're starting to sell off their people.
I mean, we've already seen multiple games in Mile High where fans are leaving when they're either down a score or the game is tied. So fans don't have confidence in this team. We got to move ahead. We're going to jump into topic number 4. The New York Giants, and shout out to You Love Nick Tanner, who's rating with a party of 6. Shout out to Nick. So for those watching live and joining us now, we're the HawksCast.net podcast. We're a Seahawks fan community podcast. With me is Zeb and Ross, and if you're still here, we love Seahawks. Chime in on the chat. So, Zeb, the New York Giants, what's the biggest surprise? Geno and the Seahawks leading the NFC West, or the Giants at 6-1?
I mean, I think it's pretty close, right?
It's so close.
I don't think. Well, okay, so I think there's probably people who thought the Giants could, maybe not 6-1 at this point, but be a decent team. They don't have an awful roster. But not many people, you could probably count on one hand the people in the media who really believed that Geno was going to be what he is so far this season. I guess I'm trying to think retrospectively. If you'd have asked me a year ago this question, what would I have answered? And I probably would have said that the Geno was the bigger surprise. So I guess I have to go with that just to be true to mine own self. You know what I mean?
Is that locking it down, keeping it real? If you had to say one thing that is the biggest surprise, is it the record of the teams, or maybe how the teams are winning? Like, what is it about Geno and the Seahawks that you're putting as the edge over the Giants at 6-1?
Well, yeah. So obviously 6-1 is a huge surprise, and that's quite an accomplishment for that team. But Geno not only playing better than people thought he was, but like really taking command and giving us leads to protect and doing the things like we talked about earlier, changing plays at the line and just showing that he really is at a point in his career where he completely understands the game, and it's slowed down enough for him that he can do, like, last year we were talking about how slow Geno looked. It looked like he was so slow to process everything, and it just doesn't look like that anymore. He just looks like he's in complete control. And when he's not, for a moment, Pete Carroll uses the force, and he's back in control. So
true.
They're both. It's neck and neck, but I'll go with Geno for the sake of the fact that I'm a Seahawks fan.
Fair enough. Ross, what about you? What's, to you, the biggest surprise? Geno and the Seahawks leading the West, or the Giants at 6-1?
Yeah, I've thought about this since I read it written this way, and I can't decide. Like, either one of them just sounds so stupid. If you'd walked up to me in August 15th, and said Giants are going to be 6-1, like, I would have assumed like that's the biggest joke of all time. And likewise, if you had just said, Geno and the Seahawks are going to be I guess the Giants are slightly more surprising to me. I didn't think Geno would be like a top five statistically speaking, a top five quarterback this year at all. And if that's how it's phrased, then it'd be a tie. If you told me like the Seahawks could be in first place in the NFC West, I wouldn't think it was likely. But we all talked about the fact that we have faith in the coaching, and so none of us thought they would be as bad as at least the national media said. But if you had said to me in August, like, Giants can be 6-1, 6 wins, I would have thought it would have taken all year to get 6 wins. So the quarterback's actually looking decent. I don't even know quite how they're doing it because, man, their wide receiver room is a mess. Nobody seems to stay healthy for more than a game in a row. Barkley's playing out of his mind. I guess that's how they're doing it. I guess the Giants give me a slightly bigger surprise, but both are pretty damn shocking.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of like, rocking a hard place. You're choosing two things that are so improbable, it's hard to really get a good grasp on it. I would say that the Giants at 6-1 are the bigger surprise, and the reason why I'm going to say is because what they're doing is not sustainable. The things that make them a 6-1 winner, where their largest margin of victory is 6 points, and their largest margin of loss, because they only have one, is 7 points. So they've got a 1-point win, a 3-point win, a 7-point loss, a 2-point win, a 5-point win, and then a 4-point win, and then a 6-point win. Their largest margin of victory, 23-17. The most points that they've scored right now is 27 points. And the most points that they've given up is 23 points. So they're doing things well enough defensively, but I just don't feel that it's sustainable, because winning one-score games means that you're lucky or your defense is lights out. And I don't think their defense is lights out because they have one of the worst run defenses in the league. So what's happening is they're just getting timely turnovers, they're getting timely stops, and while we as Seahawks fans, we've seen that kind of defense because we've been that defense in the past, I don't believe it's sustainable just because they don't have the offense to pick them up. They're number 2 in the NFL in run offense, where they're averaging 173.4 yards per game. So for Seattle, our run defense, I don't have a lot of confidence. I think that's bad for us. But their pass offense is ranked 30th in the league at 176.3. They don't have any wide receiver of note. Their best tight end got like their orbital bone busted and is going to have surgery. Saquon is obviously great for them because he can catch the ball, he can run the ball. But if that's their only weapon and they don't have any opportunity to be explosive, I think that makes them very limiting. So they're a surprise, but I think that the bubble could pop. Not saying it's this game, but in the future. I think that what they're doing, it's, they're definitely buying into the coach, a new coach. I just don't think that what they're trying to do is sustainable. Whereas what Seattle's doing with Geno, I believe that they are more sustainable. That model is more sustainable. I have more faith in that because scoring points is always a premium. And if Seattle can score points and their defense can just be okay, that's a better recipe than a defense that's really good, but an offense that struggles to put points on the board.
All fair.
Yeah. Birdfinger chiming in said, Adam Shine said, and his Seattle QB competition is just sad. Comment was popular around the league. Now Geno's showing out. Geno the bigger surprise. So I think that there is a lot to be said when we were seeing all these quarterback rankings where they had Geno outside of the top 32 quarterbacks. He was ranked worse than a few starters or bench players in the league. I think that definitely has a lot to be said, but I think for now, the Giants at 6-1 to me is a bigger surprise because I just don't think they could sustain it.
You remember like how much even we were talking about, like, are they going to trade for Minshew? Are they going to trade for Garoppolo? Are they going to go after? I mean, it was I mean, it was just like it was like a given. Like Seattle had to trade.
Oh yeah,
Had to trade for
everyone had Seattle as the number one trading quarterback. We were rumored for Baker all season. We were rumored for Jimmy G for up until he signed reworked his last year of his deal. Like everyone expected, oh yeah, they have to cut somebody, so they have to cut Jimmy because his contract's guaranteed, and he's going to just get picked up by Seattle. Like that was what everyone was saying. Tony chime in says, I was so wrong about Geno and owe him an apology. Birdfinger says, me too. I was wrong about Geno in the fact that I still have concerns about him able to win a close game at the end, but what has impressed me most, other than his completion percentage, is his command at the line of scrimmage. I think that is one of the things that I find to be most impressive.
I've been saying for years, Geno should be number one. He should have the reins turned over. I wanted to bench Russ, give it to Geno. I just saw this all coming. I don't know why people don't listen.
Ross has a Geno Smith number 7 jersey waiting in the wings, just waiting to take the tags off.
I mean, literally, I said none of this. Like, I was so mad. I was telling Tony the other day in texting, like, I'm kind of embarrassed because I feel like we were already in like week 3 and I was still like sending out comments like Geno's not an NFL quarterback. I'm so sorry, Geno. I'm sorry. It's your fault. Last year, Geno, you had 3 games and you perpetually looked like after every play, even when you threw a complete pass last year, you looked like you had the expression on his face looked so lost permanently.
Yeah.
Even like I said, even after successful plays, it was like he had no idea what had just happened. Oh, did I just complete that? Really? Wow, cool, awesome. Like, he had no idea what he was doing. He was like a deer in the headlights, except worse. So, I have a pretty good defense there, man.
I think most people had a reasonable defense. I think most people had a reasonable reason to doubt Geno. So, I don't think it's fair for anyone to say they knew this was coming. I know there are a few people that predicted it, but I think what we're seeing is just so far beyond expectations, especially when you look at his productions in weeks 4 through 7 so far. So we're going to move ahead and we're going to close out with some predictions. Zeb, we're going to start the predictions with you. What is your final score, Giants versus the Seahawks?
34-17 Seahawks.
Whoa, that's quite a whooping.
I sure hope so.
Ross, what is your prediction for the Giants versus the Seahawks? It's currently a 3-point spread.
28-13.
28-13, another double-digit win. I am concerned about them just running over us. I'm worried that this is potentially like a New Orleans Saints game where we're going to score a lot and they're going to score a lot. And our young defense is not quite ready to just lock it out completely. I think they've shown a lot of promise, but I'm just so worried about their run game and our run defense. I'm going to say it's close. I'm going to say 30-28 Seahawks. I think the Seahawks win, but I think it's going to be closer than we expected.
You expect the defense is not shut down that much? You think like 28 points allowed?
I think that the defense, like if we can't stop Daniel Jones from running, and if we can't stop Saquon from running, then it opens up all of their game, and that's where I think we run into trouble.
I think this plays to where we're heading right now. I think like you can sort of somewhat discount some of their offense. So if we can focus on the run, that takes away so much.
Okay, you know what it is? This is what it is. If we are afraid that they're going to run the ball more, Cody Barton's going to be on the field more. That's my concern. Make it simple.
I'm not sure because I think Ryan. I mean, first of all, I don't hate Cody as much as you do. Like, you think Cody Barton is essentially the defensive reincarnation of John Carlson.
No, because John Carlson everyone thought was going to be great. Cody Barton's just a guy. Like, I don't think there's anything...
Not just a guy. It's like his 5th year in the NFL. That's longer than 4th year. That's longer than most people's careers.
Yeah.
Look at his Oh, dude, he's not that bad.
He's not great. He's not good either. He's just a guy.
How is he worse up to this point in the season? Legitimately, how is he worse than Jordan Brooks? Because he doesn't have the draft capital, so he's just a guy. But
I think that his coverage skills are really bad. Like, he doesn't seem to play in space well. Like, he'll just like cover nobody for 5 to 10 yards in front of him, and then just not have any spatial awareness. It's like, you know what? There's no one in front of me. Should I look behind me? Should I see if there's a guy crossing behind me? Like, I just don't think he has that.
Like, I don't think he's Lofa Tatupu, but I just think that a lot of his early, season struggles were like we're talking about. Like, you can't expect him to make plays when the guard gets to him.
Right.
And I think the defense didn't really do what they were supposed to do. They weren't playing in maybe their zones, and the run fits weren't clear maybe, but so they seem to have adjusted. And in coverage, he's not awesome, but I don't think he's any worse than Jordan Brooks. But Jordan Brooks is high draft pick and looks cooler, so we give him a pass. But they're the same guy, basically.
Well, he's also got more tackles and more forced fumbles this season than Cody Barton does, so...
Not by much. The tackles have got to be really close.
Yeah, it's close-ish, I guess.
And forced fumbles essentially are a fluke stat, so...
Well, and fumble recovery, also.
I don't know if I would say that they're a fluke stat, because...
There's a few people who specialize in it. That's a fluke. That's a fluke. I bet Cody Barton... Sorry, not Cody. I bet Kobe Bryant goes the rest of the season and doesn't cause another fumble.
Ooh.
I will say that right now.
All right, sounds like a bet. All right, let's move on.
And I'm not talking shit about it. I'm just saying, like,
I get it. I hear you.
It'll revert to the mean, and he's already caused 4. That's just weird. And so he's not going to cause another one the rest of the season, or maybe he does one late.
Right.
Unless he's just really good at it.
He could be really good at it. All right, moving on to our second prediction. Zeb, who's going to lead in passing yards, Mr. Daniel Jones or Mr. Geno Smith?
Geno Smith.
Ross, who you got passing?
Geno Smith.
Yeah, I mean, I just spent like a minute talking about how bad their pass offense is. Of course I'm going to pick Geno. All right. Who is going to lead the game in rushing? Is it going to be Saquon Barkley, or is it going to be our Kenneth Walker III?
Kung Fu Kenny.
Ross, where are you at?
We're going to be winning by so much that I think Homer comes back this game.
Homer is practicing. Yeah. He's not been activated yet, but he's been practicing, so he could get activated for the game.
I think our RB2 and RB3 get some carries late game, so I think it's going to be Mr. Barkley.
I think that's actually a really interesting thing. So a beat reporter for the Giants said that that's a very likely thing because their rush defense, the Giants' rush defense, is so bad. I'm going to go with Kenneth Walker III because I've got him in a fantasy league. I unfortunately traded him away in a fantasy league before Penny's injury, but that trade, it's not working out so great for me right now. But it's not working great for them other than Kenneth Walker's been great. Final prediction, who is going to be our receiving yards leader? Is it going to be Tyler Lockett? Is it going to be Marquise Goodwin? Or is it going to be the combination of our 3 tight ends, Zeb?
I'll say Lockett.
Ross, who you got leading the way receiving yards? He's thinking real hard.
I'm trying to figure out how I see this game playing out, and I think I'm going to go with the tight end group.
You pick my lightning, or whatever the phrase is. I talked about earlier, like the tight ends, what they're doing, how they're being utilized. I think it's chef kiss to Geno and to Shane Waldron, because especially in these last few weeks, like I feel like that just gives them so much versatility. I'm really impressed with it. I'm gonna go, and I'll go with someone different. I'll say Marquise Goodwin is gonna lead the way. I think with DK out, and obviously we didn't talk too much about DK this podcast, but I think if Marquise Goodwin and Geno can continue to establish that rapport, I see no reason why he couldn't be a huge factor, especially in the fact that Geno doesn't seem to care who he throws to. He'll go all over the place. So that's my prediction, Marquise Goodwin. And gentlemen,
I can dig it.
those are our predictions, and that's our podcast. Final thoughts.
I'm optimistic. I think it. I'm not trying to get ahead of myself, but this should be a game that we can handle pretty well.
I'm more optimistic about this game than I was the Chargers game, for sure.
But is that because maybe our perception hasn't caught up to reality? Maybe we're not giving the Giants enough respect.
Maybe not.
I mean, I predicted a close game. Both of you predicted a double-digit win, so I feel like I'm keeping it in perspective.
I expect this defense to continue to play better, and as you said, outside of Saquon, what weapons do they have?
True.
Darius Slayton, which is a pretty cool name.
I think their highest receiver has only 200 receiving yards.
Well, they don't have any receiver that's played 2 games in a row, practically.
I mean, that's the other thing. They also have a bunch of injuries, so we'll see. You guys could be totally wrong, and we just blow this team out, which would be great. But now it's time for some shout-outs. Gentlemen, shout-outs.
Shout out to Marty Schottenheimer.
Going with the old school.
Yep.
Shout out to Jack Patera.
Nice.
All right,
and his brother Ken.
I'm gonna shout out to people that I actually know. Shout out to Nick Tana for the raid of 6 people. So everyone that's still watching, we appreciate you chiming in. Shout out to Birdfinger. Shout out to Tony for chiming in live on the Twitch chat. We are the Hawkscast.net podcast. I am Sam. With me as always, Zeb and Ross. We are excited for this game. Check us out online at Hawkscast.net, on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast or Seahawks Forum, and we wish you all a Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Happy Halloween.